Thank you for joining us today for the virtual Sunday service with the Center for Creative Living. CCL, a charter of the Universal Church of the Master, has served and supported the spiritual needs of its community here in the Bay Area for over 20 years.
I said the reason I'm waiting is for Dr. Eileen because I know she's coming. I think this chair is available right up here. Somebody just went for... Yeah, but Lauren's chair is in the back. I'm keeping track of chairs here this morning. Good morning. Good morning. Yeah, special. You are. One moment.
The reason this is usually done, I guess, is because that little blue thing does show up.
What little blue thing?
I like that hat.
Okay.
Thank you.
Oh well. Oh well.
We're going to talk about light of lights.
Yes, we're going to talk about that? Okay. Well, we're going to start out with good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning. I'm the Reverend Dottie Boone, and you're at the Center for Creative Living, and we're excited. We have so many things coming up because it's the holidays. But one of the most important things that, in case you missed it, we're going to hear a little bit about it, was Light of Lights. We Zoomed it, and it was incredible, and I was so thrilled to be a part of it, and we were so excited to have Cheryl Lewis here, who was a singer in Light of Lights. We haven't seen Cheryl for, as I said, years after she moved, and now she's back in the area. Yay! We're so glad to have you here. And Tim was part of the choir, yes. And Janet and Eileen. I mean, we've got, half the choir here. This is wonderful. Hey, thank you so much for getting out in the community and representing spirituality. So, okay, Reverend Dr. Janet Child, do you want to come on up here and tell us about Light of Lights?
Well, you already did such a beautiful job. I just want to do a huge shout out and a huge thank you to each and every one of you who participated in Light of Light, whether it was via Zoom or in person. There was a wonderful energy created for healing, and several people told me that they were so blown away by the power of the energy.
Isn't that great?
They were so blown away. And our keynote speaker, who was amazing, our Karen, our Healing Journey speaker, was incredible. And she said, I've never felt so much love. She said, I could collapse in the arms of love.
Yeah, that is great. Yeah. You're turning people away?
She's going back to get the dog.
Oh, okay. Well, welcome. And there again, Jan, Janet has been in charge of this since it started, right? Yes, all those years. And sometimes you run out of steam. And so just getting the love when you're in the event reminds you of why you do it. Because, it takes time and energy to put on anything, even Sunday morning. Making sure that Corky gets all of us going on recording and all of that, making sure that people show up. Thank you so very much for doing it. We're going to be having service here on Christmas Day, and it's going to go from 11 to 12, and then the Billy DeFrank has a celebration where they're going to have food and music and a DJ, and we're all asked to stay if we want. And if you just come for a service and then go home to be with your family, or if you are with your family, whatever you decide to do next Sunday, isn't that great? Dottie says, you can do whatever you want. How about that for a change? And our wonderful Corky will have just gotten out of the hospital. Her surgery set scheduled for next Wednesday.
Yay!
Good healing. Yes. Thank you. And that's difficult because she is definitely right-hand dominant, and her right shoulder is going to be replaced. So we are lucky to have a wonderful nurse. Arlene is going to be down here and stay with us. She's coming down the day before and stay until she's ready to take over. And Tim is going to help out with services with us. So, and Ed is going to come in and do the videotaping and all of that. So I get a lot of people helping. Thank you so much for volunteering. It really is important, and we appreciate it. Yes, Joan?
Can I make my way up?
You can make your way up, but you've got little things around here, so be real careful. And I'm just so amazed you're here after your surgery.
Well, I'm amazed too, but I am here.
Yay!
Okay, so I had hip replacement surgery on December 2nd. I've had my physical therapist lady says I'm 1 in 100 or one of a kind because I've had almost no pain. And I'm having a remarkable recovery, but that's not really what I'm here to talk about. I'm really here to talk about revolutionary ideas. And a couple of weeks ago, Mary Gary gave her talk and talked about praying for Putin, which in my mind was a revolutionary idea. Mm-hmm. I never thought of that. You know, we're taught all the time to pray for our enemies. Is Putin an enemy? Yes. Okay, so praying for our enemy. But it opened up a whole new idea to me in terms of what the story that we can tell individually, the story I can tell, the story you can tell. Each of us has had a revolutionary idea at some point in our spiritual journey. And, you know, Mary Gary's talk was wonderful, and the whole idea of praying for Putin was hidden in the middle in about 6 sentences. And it was revolutionary, and so I tried to bring it out in my article in the CCL newsletter. And sometimes because these ideas are so, in our minds, controversial because they are revolutionary, we want to hide them in 6 sentences in the middle instead of saying, wow, I got this idea. Wow, it changed my life. You know, I was calculating on the way down here, 60 years ago, when I was contemplating joining the Baptist church and trying to understand Jesus, I had a revolutionary moment in that while lying in bed, thinking about Jesus, was he real? Did he exist? Why do people follow him? You know, the whole controversy was going da-da-da-da-da-da, and had for days. I'm telling you, there was a window in front of my bed, at the foot of my bed. The curtains parted, and there was Jesus talking to me. Yeah. Jesus talking to me, Joe.
You notice nobody's really going aghast. This group all hears voices. They're just kind of like, oh, cool, yeah, we did something similar.
Well, this was a revolutionary moment for me. And I don't tell it that often, just because it happened a long time ago. But I never again doubted the existence of Jesus and his message. And he said, Joan, I am here to love you. Okay? Yeah. So I know that every one of you have had revolutionary moments. And I'm asking you to dig those up and become able to share them and put them at the center of your message. Okay? Like praying for Putin. That's a great message. Let's bring it out and pray for our enemies. I want to tell you that I've always believed my body was strong and would heal quickly. And I've heard, Dottie, that what you think about happens.
Right.
Yeah. Have you heard of that?
No, I thought I made it up.
Well, I'm telling you that it's real. And my body is strong and is healing quickly and with very little pain. So I'm asking you to think about your own revolutionary moments and be willing and to share them. And I'll be happy to help you craft a talk around it. Okay, have a beautiful Christmas.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Joan. Yeah. Thank you very much. For many of you, you're saying, well, it's Christmas. And we've heard the whole thing about why do you say happy holidays? And what I want to remind you of, that it's not just Christmas. Yes. There are so many holidays, and one of the things that we forget is that, as Farima was talking about last week, the Zoroastrians, and they celebrate, but today is the first day of Hanukkah. And so that's why we have the menorah here. And so we want you to realize that Jesus was a Jew. And that's why Hanukkah is so important, especially with Christmas coming up. And the 21st is a wonderful time. It's a solstice. It's we drew it here today. And that's an important holiday. You know, when you think of that and you go, oh, the Yule solstice is an important holiday. And so that's another one that you kind of want to look at. And of course, we have Christmas, the birth of Christ. But then also back to when I was talking about Zoroaster, they celebrate the anniversary of the death of Zoroaster, who was the founder of Zoroaster. And somebody said, why do you celebrate the death? And I said, why do you celebrate Easter? Now that's the rising, but there was a death, and that's what happened there. Do we need some more chairs? Yeah, there, Regina, there, Tim. So think about that. We celebrate people who were born and who died, who made a difference. And the other thing that we have coming up is Kwanzaa. And Kwanzaa is on the 26th, and it's an African-American celebration that started in 1966. I mean, it's the newest celebration. It's not a religion per se, as much as a celebration of who you are. And it's an African-American celebration. And that's another holiday. And then back on the 31st, we have one, again, that is Zoroastrian. I mean, there's so many holidays in this period. So when somebody says Merry Christmas, don't say, oh, well, I say Happy Holidays. Just say back Happy Holidays. You know, and if they say, well, no, the only thing, you don't have to argue. As a spiritualist, you don't have to argue. You just realize that's where their heart is. And just say, thank you. Okay, can we do that? Good. I thought you could. I thought I was talking to people that could understand that. One of the people I have in the audience is speaking to the choir in more ways than one. So yeah, go choir. It's so great to have all of you here from the Light of Lights choir. Yeah, 5 out of how many? Yeah, we've got 5 out of, yeah, we've got quite a few people here from the choir. The other thing that I would like to mention is that as we're going through here today, think of who you are during this period of life, during this time of holidays. Who are you? How does it work for you? Because you're going to feel motivated to either buy a gift or not buy a gift. You're going to feel motivated to send out love or to start loving yourself more. This is a time for you to become aware of exactly who you are. The other thing that I want to do, I want to mention somebody here, and that's Luis. And there you are, Luis. And thank you so much for being here all the way from Nevada. And he had a death in his family, and he's here. And so if you don't know him, just walk up and just say, hi, and this is Luis, and with his sister Deb, and with a puppy dog in a crate, which is wonderful because our pet sidekick is right there, Amina, and that dog needs some talking to. Oh, anyway.
And very careful on recovering from COVID.
And what?
Maria.
Maria? I didn't see Maria walk in. Where is she?
Yeah, I saw her.
Okay. Okay. All the way in the back. There you are, Maria. Welcome.
Thank you for coming, Maria.
I'm so glad you're feeling better. Okay. Our talk today is by our wonderful Tim. Tim has volunteered to help set up things on Sunday. We need help here. And he volunteered. And, well, not really. I tackled him, but we've got him on the ground, roped him up and said, will you volunteer? And he said yes. And what he's going to be talking about, healing the inner child, the metaphysics of Charles Dickens. I have no idea what that is, but I'm excited. I want to put it out there and let it kind of percolate. Right. So as soon as the prayer is over, he's going to jump up here. Okay. And you know what? Since the closest holiday we have is coming up on the.
Everybody knows the noise is happy noise. I'm rolling over. He's having a wonderful time. Like, when am I getting out?
Okay,
Sorry.
but I'm going to ask our wonderful Reverend Dr. Eileen, since the next holiday is solstice, would you like to lead us in a short, it's got to be a short prayer because Tim's got a good topic. Okay.
Meditation, Dottie?
Well, yes, we'd love to have you come up here.
Oh, okay. I wasn't sure.
Yes.
So we do prayer and meditation all
Prayer and
together?
Prayer meditation, yeah.
Okay.
You got a chair? I've got a chair. All God's children right now have chairs. Okay. And there we go, Dr. Eileen.
All righty. Good morning, everyone.
Morning.
All righty. Short prayer. Whenever I hear that, I always go back to, the childhood. It's like short grace. Good grief, good meat, good Lord, let's eat. And yet that is a prayer. So take a nice deep breath in and let it out. And let's think of the shortest prayer. Maybe the shortest prayer is just thank you. Maybe the shortest prayer is you were there when I needed you. Maybe the shortest prayer is damn it. Maybe the shortest prayer is I can't. All of those little short prayers. And we know, Creator, we know that you hear every single one of them. We know that even in our longest prayers, you are patient and you hear everything we have to say. But it's especially in those shortest prayers, that prayer that is help me. I can't do this alone. We know that you are there in that prayer and you hear us and you are there saying, I have never left you. I'm right beside you. It's all right. I already know what's in your heart. I already know what you need. And I know the difference between what you want and what you need, even when you don't. But whatever I give you, it is from a place of love. It is from a place of compassion. And it is from that place of knowing that you are strong enough to bear any challenge I bring to you. Because my will never take you where my grace will not sustain you and protect you. So Creator, thank you. Thank you for hearing our shortest prayers and taking the longest, deepest, most loving way of answering it. Whatever it means to you, Creator, we give our shortest prayer of thank you, and we hope you have a wonderful day.
And we stand on the threshold, and we give you our gratitude for all the ways you surround us as we spread our wings and fly. Oh Creator, we are here in all our wholeness and our brokenness. Oh Creator, we are here with hearts open on the threshold. And we fly, 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 reach to the sky, knowing your arms are around us. And we fly, 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 and know the reason why we're here on this earth. You have taught us that we bring our light. You have taught us that we dance with our child. You have taught us that we are never alone. and that we are whole, and we can be wild, and we spread our wings and we fly, and we know the reason why we are here. We are here. We are here in our fullness. We are here. We are here. We are here. Every moment of every day, and we dance on the threshold, and you are wrapping your arms around us, and we are here.
And just take a nice deep breath and release it slowly. And bring yourself back to the room. And I want to take this time to introduce our wonderful Tim Mauro, who's going to be giving us our talk today. And Tim, I'm going to move my chair over so you can have a little bit of room here. So you can get as expressive as you want. Okay.
Don't have to worry about me going.
What? Don't have to worry about that?
Swinging the arms.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. Here, can you push those chairs over for me? And I'm going to be, I don't do any nefarious things back here, okay? Here, you're safe. Thank you.
You sure?
I'm sure. Oh, one more thing. For those of you who are taking classes, the Thursday class, 1st of January, is going to be taught by Mary Gary, Reverend Mary Gary, and it's going to be about how to pray, because Corky has said she's not too sure that she would be ready to teach the class. So we gathered up one of our best speakers around, that's Reverend Mary Gary. So that'll be at the UCM office on January 5th.
Yeah, all my first time is going to be I'm going to be incarcerated. So I'm going to be recuperating, yes. Dottie, you really challenged me on the incarceration.
I know.
It'll just feel like that.
Even self-inflicted, come on.
Yeah, house arrest.
There you go.
Well, good morning.
Good morning.
I'm so glad that Dottie and Corky were willing to have me give this talk at this time of year as we move through what we commonly call the holiday season. As Dottie was talking about a few minutes ago, when I was growing up, it was more common to call it the Christmas season, but that's changed in recent decades in our quest to be more inclusive with other cultures and traditions. Of course, we still do, as Dottie mentioned, have a lot of people out there who are thoroughly parochial in their thinking and hold on to the concept that Jesus Christ is the reason for the season and all the rest is just commercialism. But it's important to remember that so many of the customs of this season that we take for granted are direct descendants of the customs that originated, as Eileen would know, in Northern Europe and also the Roman Empire, all centuries before anyone had ever heard of Jesus. As you probably know, the climate in that part of the world was and is quite volatile. So it would be rare to have temperature above 0 degrees at this time of year. And without modern climate control or electric lighting that we have today, the nights were much longer and colder and scarier. So if you didn't do well with your harvesting in the previous months, you were in for a rough winter. And as the people of that time moved through those experiences, so many of these traditions and evolved. Like in the Celtic and Germanic regions, they had the celebration that we were just talking about, Yule or Yuletide, the focal point being December 21st, the shortest day and longest night of the year, where you would find the biggest log out there bring it in, set it ablaze, keep it ablaze for several days. And the houses were decorated with plants that thrived and stayed green, through the winter months as most of nature died out, as we do today, holly, and ivy, and evergreens. And singing songs and telling stories were integral to these celebrations. And I was just reading that the tradition of giving gifts originated with the Roman holiday of Saturnalia. And then, through the 3rd and 4th centuries, this new religion called Christianity began taking root in the Western world. And as the missionaries went through these regions, working at getting these people on board with this new religion, they were often met with the reaction, well, all this Christianity stuff sounds intriguing, but if we're expected to give up our Yuletide and Samhain and rites of spring traditions, that would be a deal breaker. So the missionaries kept these celebrations in place for the newly converted, just retagged them with Christian symbolism. And they chose to make the Yule celebration a time to celebrate the birth of Jesus of Nazareth, as narrated in the Gospels of Luke and Matthew. So it became the Christ Mass, or Christmas. But whatever religious symbolism you attach to it, or whatever rituals or customs you like to include in your holiday celebrations, it's most important to look at what the customs are pointing to. Dr. J. Scott Neal used to advise us, never make the symbol more important than what it's symbolizing. Yes. Thank you, Dr. J. So back in ancient times, as in modern times, it's always been ultimately about waking up to that inner light, the true essence of who we are, that never stops burning and sustaining us, even when the rest of the world seems to have given up on us. And as we move through these times, and we all do, because we're all constantly in a state of growth, that is a state of dying out and being reborn. The person I was yesterday is not suitable for the experience of today. So he needed to die out and give life to the person I am today. If there are any Bible readers here today, you can check the book of Revelations, chapter 2, verse 5, where God is quoted as saying, "Behold, I make all things new." But often as we make up our minds to have that new experience, the first thing that happens is that we find the old ideas and experiences dying out on us. And it feels much like watching nature die out in the winter months. You might find people who are important to you leaving your life, or that job you're comfortable with disappearing, just as 2 examples. Because those things can't coexist with the new person that you've chosen to be. Now, how many of you have ever found yourself moving through a dark, cold, and desolate winter when the calendar shows that it's the middle of July and the thermometer reads 85 degrees? That's when it's really important to look within and know that inner light is always ready to sustain you, bring you comfort, and know that you're moving into, we could say, a higher consciousness and hence a greater life experience in all areas of life. And so next time you're driving at night and you see the house on the block that's decked out in Christmas lights in a way that would make Clark Griswold jealous, or when you bring in the evergreen tree and mount it on your living room floor and then hang the pretty decorations and lights on, or when you get together with your friends and sing the Christmas Carol classics like we were doing a few weeks ago at the winter holiday party. Let all those things be a reminder of that inner light which never goes out. So if that's really the essence of our holiday traditions, it's no wonder that a master storyteller and writer from the 19th century found it to be his favorite time of the year. So much so that his very name and the story he's best remembered for have become an integral part of our celebration. The man I'm talking about is, of course, Charles Dickens, generally regarded by literary historians as the greatest author to come out of England, second only to, who can guess? William Shakespeare. So to explain where I'm going with this, let's take a brief look at his life. By the way, when did I start?
Oh, don't worry.
Oh,
Just
well.
talk until you're done.
Or until I hear you say shut up, whichever comes first. Okay. So for the first 10 years of his life, Dickens thought that his family was rich, and all the evidence was there. A big house, servants, plenty of food, plenty of toys. His parents were well respected by the community. He and his siblings went to the best schools. An ideal picture of family life in the 19th century Victorian England. Until one day, when young Charles was about 10 and a half years old, close to 11, there was a loud, angry knock at their front door. And when his father answered it, there stood a creditor who his father owed quite a bit of money to, and behind him, a big and very mean-looking constable. And the constable said to his father, "John Dickens, you are under arrest for indebtedness. I'm afraid you're going to have to come with me to debtor's prison." And his father turned to Charles and said to him something to the effect of, "Oh, woe is me. Our family has fallen on hard times and shame." That's how Charles learned his father's major personality flaw. He had terrible, terrible money management skills. So off John Dickens went to debtor's prison. Now, a debtor's prison at that time was not like Elmwood Correctional Facility or one of those kinds of places. Rather, it closely resembled a neighborhood of low-income housing. If you go to the most rundown part of San Jose, it would probably give you a good idea of what it looked like, except one big difference. There was a very large, heavy gate surrounding the neighborhood. And when a man was sent there, his entire family usually went with him, since they would usually have nowhere else to go. That included the wife, all the children, the pets, and even the servants, since they would have nowhere else to go. And once you were sent there, that's where you stayed. There were only two ways to get out. Either you died and the rest of the household was evicted and left to fend for themselves, or you paid your debt. And usually the only way for that to happen, because the debtor is locked in. But one member of the family could go out and work to chip away at the debt. And that was usually relegated to the oldest male child in the family. So at the age of nearly 11, young Charles gave up his schooling and his toys and his comfortable life and began working full-time at a job that was secured by a family friend. And some job it was. 14 hours a day, 6 days a week, working in a shoe polish factory. All boots were black in those days, so they needed frequent polishing. So the black polish was cooked up in giant cauldrons and poured into bottles by hand. And then Charles' job was to put a cork on the bottle, paste a label on the front, put it in the crate, next bottle, cork, label, crate, cork, label, crate, and on for 14 hours each day, then take his tired self home to the room he was boarding at, rest up for another 14-hour shift the next day. Fortunately, young Charles was an intelligent boy and decided to make the best of a terrible situation. He decided to make a game of it. So he and another boy who worked alongside of him got into doing the same job. He got into a competition of who could cork and label the most bottles in a given amount of time without spilling it. And, well, this competition resulted in a significant increase in production, which, you can imagine, pleased the employer very much. So much so that they decided to place the two boys by the front window of the factory as sort of an advertising and public relations scheme, and feature the two speedy urchin boys in their corking and labeling competitions. At first, this made Charles very proud. He loved being the center of attention and appreciated by his employer, but it wasn't long before he noticed that many businessmen from neighboring businesses on the streets were making bets on how many bottles he could cork and label in a certain amount of minutes. And he noticed how huge amounts of money were changing hands. And he was still working harder than any child his age should have to, and never seeing those wages, by the way. And he realized these people who had no concern for him whatsoever were getting richer at his expense, and he felt terribly ill-used. And this filled him with a sense of shame and resentment, which followed him well into adulthood. Now, happy ending coming, so Hank. Because eventually his father's debt did get paid off, and the family was released from prison. And in time, young Charles grew up and moved away from his family and began his career first as a journalist, then as an author. And his novels were first read as a serial in a magazine or monthly magazine or weekly newspaper. Bookbinding was an expensive procedure in those days, and few people could afford books. So you would reach a much larger audience by submitting a chapter at a time each week or month to a newspaper or magazine. The book forms came later. And needless to say, he had found his calling. All throughout England and beyond, people just couldn't wait to read the latest installment of each of his stories. And his stories had a common thread to them. In most of them, the main protagonist, or at least an important character, was a child between the ages of 10 and 12. And each of these young protagonists were thrown into really bad situations due to the malice or negligence of the adults who were supposed to be taking care of them, or the negligence of society in general. And the young child protagonist would go through several adventures and misadventures, and in the end, one of two things would happen. Either, the most preferable ending would be that a kind and virtuous adult would find their way into the child's life and take them in and make the remainder of their childhood a good one, or the other ending would be that the child dies before they reach their 13th birthday. And in either case, all the shame and degradation were heaped right back onto those who caused the child's terrible situation in the first place. Now, Dickens wasn't just writing about what he knew. That's common advice for writing, and it's probably correct. But he was also healing the shame and resentment that had plagued him since his painful childhood. And he was making society pay for what they had put him through. And they paid dearly. Not just in money, though he did become quite rich through his writing. He never lost sight of that. But also by bluntly making them aware of how dreadfully off so many children had become as a result of their mindless, thoughtless social system. And he made them enjoy it. Waiting for that next chapter to come out in the next edition of the paper or magazine was like us waiting for the next episode of our favorite new show on Netflix. And he had a gift for taking the reader into the world of each child. Oliver Twist, David Copperfield, Nicholas Nickleby, of course, Tiny Tim, who's in the Christmas Carol, which we'll get into in just a minute. And in the story, The Old Curiosity Shop, Little Nell. She was the first girl he created as a main character. Up until then, they had all been boys. But for this story, he decided his readers really needed a punch-in-the-gut wake-up call. So this was probably the saddest story he had ever written. And little Nell was a sweet and virtuous 12-year-old girl who his readers all fell in love with. And she was being raised by her good-for-nothing grandfather who had a terrible gambling addiction. And during the course of this serial, Dickens was getting letters from readers pleading for a happy ending for this girl. Several from church prayer groups, praying for little Nell to live. But, spoiler alert, in the final chapters, she doesn't live to see her 13th birthday. Now, throughout the second half of the 19th century, there was a huge cleanup job throughout England. The debtors' prisons were taken out of commission one by one. The workhouses that orphans spent their childhoods in were closed down. The abusive boarding schools were either closed or much more closely regulated, and many child labor laws were put in place. And historians credit Charles Dickens as a major thrust toward that cleanup job. They say he inspired this change more than any politician or social worker. And he did it not by political coercion, but by art, by storytelling. Now, how many of you would like to have your own version of that experience, of letting whatever gift you have be a bright light to help heal any of the many things that need healing in our world, and of getting your own inner child healed of whatever experience in your past may still be haunting you? I might be preaching to the choir with this group, but
We love the encouragement.
I do want to mention we actually get several good lessons on how to do that from the story that Dickens is best remembered for. As I mentioned before, A Christmas Carol. That story is probably quite familiar to most or all of you. It's had more adaptations than any other I can think of. It seems every year we get a new rendition of it from a new movie or cartoon or even an episode of a sitcom. And they range from very silly to very dark. But I recommend all of you buy or borrow from the library a copy of the original book and explore it in its original context. And as a student of this teaching, see what important lessons you can pull out of it beyond the obvious. So, in the time we have left, just a quick summary here. The story begins by introducing us to a very troubled individual by the name of Ebenezer Scrooge. And in the first few pages, we're given a lot of evidence that this is not a very nice guy at all. He's harboring a lot of misery and leaving the stench of that misery with everyone he comes in contact with. Until one Christmas Eve, he gets home from a routine, miserable day at the office and encounters the wandering spirit of Jacob Marley, his old business partner who had died 7 years earlier. And Marley tells Scrooge, essentially, he tells him, take it from a guy who learned the hard way. You, sir, are on a destructive path, and you have been for quite some time. But the good news is that I've dispatched 3 spirit guides to help bring some clarity to you on this matter. Well, Scrooge wasn't thrilled at all about that prospect, but he was way too frightened to argue, as I would be. So Marley went on his way, and Scrooge was left to await the first spirit guide. And it did show up a few hours later and took Scrooge on a journey into his past, a little bit like a therapist would do with us today. And he relived his painful childhood and then watched himself grow into an adult and develop a paradigm of living from a sense of want, living from a sense of this world only has so much of anything to give us: love, abundance, joy, and if I don't hoard all that stuff inside of me, then I'm just going to get crushed under. And when he took that honest look at himself and finished the journey, he came back with the lesson that he had been viewing the present with the understanding of the past, and it was time to stop that and start viewing the past with the understanding of the here and now. You might want to write that down. You don't have to be a Scrooge to benefit from it. Stop viewing the present with the understanding of the past and start viewing the past with the understanding of the present. So he got a short reprieve before the second spirit guide came, but this one did make a grand entrance and then took him out to see shadows of what was currently going on around him. It gave him a look at the lives of many people, most of whom were seeing the same world he was every day, but with much more clarity than he had ever attempted to. And the end of this journey left him with the important lesson that he wasn't seeing the world as it is, he was seeing the world as he is. And that's the case with all of us as well. None of us are seeing the world as it is. We're seeing the world as we are, so it's really important to expand your self-definition and your definition of the world with every experience you go through, good and bad. And after that, the third spirit guide came right into the picture. No reprieve this time. And it was a lot darker and scarier than the first two. And it showed him the world he would help create and would find himself in the midst of in the near future if he continued on the path he was currently walking. And none of it looked to be a good outcome. And this scared the daylights out of him, or maybe into him. In any case, left him very upset. But then the final chapter we all look forward to. He's finished with that last journey and finds himself back in his bedroom. He realized at this point he can't change the past or what's immediately before him, but he can decide how to react to what's immediately before him. And he can make a decision to change his thinking and his attitude and his behavior and commit to following through with it. And henceforth becomes a blessing to the world. So, as Dr. Kennedy Schultz once said, there's a little Dickens in all of us. So I invite everyone to let this coming year be a huge blessing for yourself and for everyone you come in contact with. And if you so choose, say with me, and so it is.
And so it is. Thank you.
Thank you.
And God bless us everyone.
That's supposed to be my line.
And now he's going to play
Tim.
a song that he has written. And back there, do you want to sit down, or are you comfortable standing?
No, she's.
Okay. Okay, Lisa. Okay.
And on that note,
Is this something we can dance to?
you can try. Yeah. You need the fiddle for that. Is this coming through?
Yes.
The light of the world is something anyone can choose to be. Knowing who and what we are is the key. Spirit expressing in through and past. Cursing the darkness won't do a thing to help us find our way through the confusion and into a better day. Let's try lighting a candle instead. The healing always begins with a new understanding and a release, knowing that it's done in the mind of the infinite. It's good enough to be true. Love and compassion for everyone are necessities. If we just think of them as luxuries, then humanity cannot survive. The light of the world is something anyone can choose to be. Knowing who and what we are is the key. And letting it be our way. And letting it be our way. And letting it be our way. Okay, that's your song.
That was wonderful. Wow. Thank you so much, Tim. It was great. Yeah. And what did you do with the baskets? Okay. I need somebody to pass the basket, and I need somebody to hand out guilt. This Hanukkah guilt.
No.
Guilt. Not guilt. Well, yeah, thank you. Thank you, Janet. Guilt. No guilt.
This is very special. Beautiful song. Tim.
Wait a minute, everybody, we've got messages from the Zoom.
Yeah, Patty and Joyce said beautiful song. Thank you, Tim. Sherry said thank you, Tim. An amazing sermon. I love the quotes, and I learned a lot about Charles Dickens' life. Bravo. Patty and Joyce, great talk. Really interesting. Thank you. Chin Lee says, lovely, inspiring story, Tim. Thank you so much. And thank you so much. We really enjoyed it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yay.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And the story from Chris Brown. Yay.
Yeah. And now if we're going to say our blessing of the basket, if you would just hold it right there, Mary. And giving to the ministry, in which I receive my spiritual support and nurturing, is an affirmation and consciousness of the truth that Spirit is a prospering power enriching every area of our lives. Thank you so very much. Yay, thank you. Really do appreciate that. And the Hanukkah gelt, is that right, Jan?
Yes.
The gelt. I want you to take home, and if you want to munch on it, fine. If you want to put it under your tree, fine. If you want to put it next to your menorah, whatever, this is for you.
Can you put gelt under a Christmas tree?
Yeah, you can put gelt under a Christmas tree. Remember, Jesus was Jewish, so that works fine. Now, we have food, is that correct, Gabrielle?
Yes, I'll put it out.
Do you want to mention anything about the food quickly? Since we're receiving gifts?
It's Christmas Day next week.
Yeah.
Yeah, I want to say something.
Well, come on up. This is Gabrielle, the president here.
Yay! Gabrielle!
Are you taking it off to here?
Oh, chocolate coins.
Yeah.
Do you want to take it, Hanukkah gelt?
Okay. So, everybody, I just love having you here. So because Sunday is Christmas Day, just so that you know and you don't freak out, that when you walk in, all the tables will be set out. And you can sit anywhere at the tables for the, I don't know what you call it, the celebration.
Celebration.
Yeah. And then you're already here for Christmas Day. And we will have 3 tables with tons of food. And you're welcome to bring more food if you want. And so we will continue the celebration until 3 o'clock. And we will have real food, it's so funny. I'm Australian, Yugoslavian, what do people do? Oh yeah, ham. I always have to ask every year, what do Americans eat for Christmas? And I think somebody's going to bring a pizza. So, we are actually not celebrating Christmas. What we are doing is we are open on Christmas Day because it is a complicated issue for many people, not just in the LGBTQ plus community, but I think a lot of people find it a complicated issue. So it will not be complicated here. We won't have a Christmas tree or Hanukkah or solstice or Kwanzaa, anything, because we want everyone to feel they can either celebrate anything or everything or just celebrate being who you are. And I think that's the important thing that I think CCL really teaches is celebrate who you are on this weird planet. Yeah. And we will have our in-house DJ, and if you want him to play anything, he will play it for you. So anyway, it'll be fabulous. Thank you.
Thank you. Oh, Gabrielle, tell them about the food. We have some new people here. Tell them about the food we're getting here.
Okay. We have donations of food that we want you to take because we don't know what to do with it if you don't take it.
Oh my gosh. Oh, I come from such a large family. We never had that experience of having food that nobody knew what to do with it. Thank you so much. And this is a time we're going to do a short blessing. And so if you'd all just put your feet flat on the floor and close your eyes. Dear Mother, Father God, thank you so much for being with us today. Thank you so much for Tim giving us this amazing message. Thank you for Joan, her helping us and realizing that we can bless those that we consider enemies. We can be thankful for the land that we have and the people that we have on this planet. And we can enjoy the gifts that are given to us by the Creator. Please, everybody, realize that this is a time for helping support people, for giving, for loving. This is a time of the year when many people feel alone. For whenever many people feel that their life is not going in the direction they want. Unfortunately, this is a suicide time of the year. Please, if there's somebody in trouble, if there's somebody in grief, if there's somebody in loss, listen to them. You don't have to worry about what you should do that's right. Just be there and listen. Hold their hand. If they prefer you not, that's fine. Be the listening post of love and support all of those who need the support of knowing that they're not alone. Thank you so much for being here. Hopefully see you next week. Amen.
Amen.
Thank you. Okay, so you've got food to grab, you've got coffee in there, you've got cookies and chips in the kitchen. I mean, talk about giving. The Light of Lights people gave us wonderful stuff, and I'm getting a gift. What is this?
Yes.
Yeah, a gift. Do I get to open it?
Right away.
I can